everybody, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company, and Halloween is almost upon us. Now, you may not know this, but before I was a quilter, I was a costumer. So I love Halloween, I love dressing up. It's just a fun time for our family. And as we got closer to the holiday, I just wanted to make a little wall hanging. So take a look at these little wall hangings behind us. This is the one we're making it today and talking about. This is the fabric that we're using. We've got 3 cats, 4 hats. Now we already have a video on how to make the cat, so you can make a whole quilt of cats if you desire. Now this other wall hanging over here, this was the one that I used all kinds of scraps for to decide if I indeed wanted to do a wall hanging. This was my practice one over here. And so these are all random scraps, just not any line of fabric or anything like that, just random scraps I have. But I couldn't resist showing it to you because it's so cute. So today, let's talk about this one. Let me show you how to make that. So what you're going to use is 1 packet of 10-inch squares, and we have used Under a Spell by Jennifer Pugh for Wilmington fabrics. You're also going to need a 1/2 yard of background fabric, and just this little bit of fabric right here is what we're calling our background, and then a 1/2 yard for your border out here. Now before we go too much further, I want you to notice the quilting on this, because the quilting on this is all spider webs, and you can see those spider webs on the back. Aren't they so cute? We've got a few random threads here, but other than that, I just love those spider webs. I think they're really cute, and it's a fun time to be able to use them. So let me walk you through these blocks because it's just really fun. We're going to start with the cat. For your background on your cat, you're going to need a 5-inch square, a 2.5 by 5-inch rectangle, and a 2.5-inch square. And for the cat, I'm just going to go ahead and cut him for you while we're watching right here. We're going to use a 5 by 9.5-inch rectangle. So we're just going to cut a 1/2 inch off this end over here. And then we're going to cut his head, which is a 3 by 5-inch piece. So 3 inches by 5 inches. And then we need 2 little 2.5-inch squares for his ears. So we're going to cut this into 2.5 right here. And we're going to come over here and cut this 2.5. And that's all it takes to make this kitty. So let me show you how to put that together. All right. First thing we're going to do is we're going to put his little tail on over here. And we're going to do that by adding our 2.5 background square to our orange. This is going to be a ginger cat. You can see this is what the block looks like. And I'm calling him a tabby because he's a striped cat. This is going to be a little ginger cat, and so we're going to just sew on this line. I made a finger press line diagonally across my 2.5-inch square. We're going to sew right on that line, right across there. We're going to trim that off and press it back. Over here, let me get to my iron. There we go. Now, we are also going to now make his ears. So we're going to take a 2.5-inch strip of background, and we're going to put 2 2.5-inch squares on here, and I'm going to finger press them. So you're going to fold. Really what you want to do is you want to put your wrong sides together when you fold this. It's way easier to sew in the ditch than it is on top of that mountain. So you're going to put a square like this in each corner, and they're both going to go, whoops, I almost did that wrong again. All right, so we're just going to fold this wrong sides together and line them up. Now you want to put them on here so that you're going to sew into the middle and into the middle on both sides. So let's go to the sewing machine and do that, because you want his ears to lay right. So follow the line. I got down here to the bottom, and then I'm just going to leave my needle down and pivot. Make sure my square still stays lined up. There we go. And now we're going to trim these off and fold them back. Just like making a little flying geese unit for his ears. That's all that is. All right, we're going to press this back right here and press it back. All right, So now we're going to attach this to his face part. That's the 3 by 5 inch piece. We're going to lay those right sides together and sew a 1/4 inch seam across those. And we're going to press that open. And then we're going to attach it to the background piece right here. Now this piece goes to this piece, and then we're going to attach this body on here, and that makes our cat block. So let's go ahead and do this one. I'm going to bring the body over to the sewing machine so that I can have it right here when I'm ready to sew it. And I'm just going to lay that right along that edge. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch. And then we're going to open it up. I'm just going to kind of finger press this so it lays down, and then I'll press the whole block when I get back over there. You want to turn this so you make sure the tail, the background fabric meets up with the background fabric. And then we're just going to sew a 1/4 inch straight down. This is such a quick, fun little kitty. All right, now let's press him open. And you're going to make 3 of these. Oh, he's so cute. Let's see, make sure my seams are all going the way I want them to. Let me lay this guy down. All right, here he is. Isn't he cute? You're going to make 3 of these, and you're going to sew those together, you know, 1, 2, 3 in a row. So you're going to sew that little unit together. Then we need to make the hat. This is our hat block, and it's super easy as well. So we're going to take a hat piece and a background piece like this, and we're going to lay those right on top of each other. And I'm going to put my background one on the top. And now I'm going to use my simple wedge ruler. So the first thing to make the hat, I'm going to use the simple wedge ruler. So but the first thing you want to do before that is you want to cut off 1 inch off any side, because this is going to be your brim. So if you have stripes, you want to check them to make sure they're going the right way. But I'm just cutting 1 inch off over here and setting that aside up here. Now I'm going to take my 2 squares and fold them in half to mark a middle line. We're marking a center line here. All right. You probably can't see this. I have a tiny little fold right there, and I have a dot line on my simple wedge. We're going to lay that right on the fold, right on the bottom. You might notice that your point comes off the top a little bit. That is perfectly fine. Now we're going to cut both sides like this, and this is going to make our hat and our background piece. So now I'm going to pull this piece off, and you can see that hat just magically appear. Magic, because it's Halloween. And then we're going to lay these side pieces on here like this. Now this one right here, you just want to match this up as close as you can. There's not much overhang or anything like that, so just match it up as close as you can. We're going to sew this piece to this side, and we're going to sew this piece to the other side. So I'm going to take both of those over to the sewing machine, and you just want to make sure you get them going the right direction, so you may want to lay them back down as you get ready to add the other one. All right. So there's this side, and I'm going to roll this back and finger press it, and especially press nice with your fingernail up along the point, because that's where you add the other piece of fabric. So then you can see I just make sure that's going the right direction. We're going to lay this one over like this and just put it on. Again, match it up as close as you can. Now we'll go press the whole block open. Alrighty, so lay that back, lay that back. Now we're going to add the brim. If there's any little pieces that didn't line up perfectly, this is where you want to trim those off so you have a nice smooth edge. So I'm just going to come along here. I just have like itty bitty little bits to trim off. So, I mean, you can't even hardly see that. So then you're going to add your brim, and you're going to take your hat piece and line it up on here like this, and just sew 1/4 inch right across. Now, because we've taken 2 seams on the top, your little brim piece is now going to be longer than your hat piece, but I just like to sew it on like this. and then I flip it over to the back, and whatever's sticking out right here, I'm just going to trim that off. So you're just going to trim that, and then I'm going to press this open. These are so fun. So when I was making these, I thought this would be an awesome little Christmas tree also. You know, I mean, you could do instead of a brim, you could do a little stem block in there, something like that. But isn't that cute? That little hat. So you're going to make 4 of those, and when you go to sew them together, you're going to sew them top to bottom just like this. You're going to sew that seam in there and just make 4 of those and sew them together. So we've done the cat, we've done the hat. Let's move on to the pumpkin. Now the pumpkin is just like a tiny little quilt of 5-inch squares, and so we have some of those right here. You're just going to cut your 10-inch square into 4ths, and then we're going to sew those together. And just like that, you'll just lay them on here and sew across. And we made 5 in a row. So here's a row right here. Here's 5. And you're going to do 4 rows that have 5 in them. So I have the rest of that right here. And see how it just makes like a little mini quilt. So let's go ahead and sew this together. You want to match up your seams. A helpful thing to do is to iron 1 row of seams this way and the other row that way, so they all just lay together as we put them on. And so we're just going to attach this 1/4 inch seam and match up your seams as we go along. I can feel that one's not quite lined up. There we go. And you just sail along the side. And that's our little pumpkin. We're going to press him open, make that seam lay nice and flat. Now he looks a little square, so we need to round out those corners. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our background fabric and we're going to cut some 5-inch squares from our background fabric. We're going to fold those in half and give us a sew line. We're going to put 1 of these on each corner, and we're going to sew from corner to corner, so they'll look like this. And you're going to put 1 on all 4 corners, so let's go to the sewing machine and just sew those on. Now once you have your little 5-inch squares cut and folded, that line is right there ready for you to go. I'm going to go ahead and fold this last one right here. And then we're going to sew these on the corner. Now you just line them up right on the corner and you sew on the line. And now I'm just going to turn this and come right around to the next one and sew the next one on. Alrighty, so this is what gives our pumpkin that rounded shape. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go and cut these extra corners off right here and then press them open. Now I'm kind of abouting 1/4 inch from my seam. I'm just almost measuring. Alrighty, here we go. Last one. All right, now let's press these back. And because they're folded, they're almost laying down as it is. 1 more. Here we go. All right, so this is our pumpkin, and he fits right in here like this, just like that. So now what you need to do, once you get your pumpkin done, you're going to add your little borders on your pumpkin. And this is a 3-inch strip. Check the pattern to be sure. This is a 7-inch strip up here, and we're going to put that across the top. Once you get those all around the pumpkin, you're ready to add the stem. And honestly, I just cut a little shape out of my fabric. I found a scrap. Let's see if this will fit. And traced it on. Yep, see, this one will fit on there just right. And so you're just going to cut this out And I'm just doing a little bit of, let me come over here to the middle so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just using my rotary cutter and cutting around the shape. And then over here. There we go. Alrighty. So once you get your little shape cut, your little stem cut, make sure you clean up those edges and it's all nice. Then what I did was, now remember, I've already got my borders sewn on here. So let me grab a piece of this background fabric and put it across the top. So my border is sewn on here like this. We're just going to pretend that. And I'm going to give me enough room there. And I'm going to lay my stem right here, up here. I'm just going to use some lapel glue. You can put it on some fusible. You can do whatever you want. We're just going to use a lapel stick right here and stick it on there like this. And then just machine stitch around that. So that's all I did to that. Once you get your borders on here, you're going to attach this to your cat unit up here, and you're going to run your hats down your side. So let's look at these quilts a little bit more. This is really a quick and easy project. So much fun. Just our little pumpkins, our hats, and this up here. I used over here, you know, can see I used all different kinds of prints for my cats and my hats, and gathered oranges for my pumpkin. Just a really fun project. So we're calling this tutorial Fall Shenanigans because it's fun to have some shenanigans around Halloween time. And we hope that you have a wonderful holiday and enjoyed this tutorial from the Missouri Star Quilt Company.